Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Rena and today I'm making my first ever 3D model. Now I have made one artwork with 3D modeling before and here it is. I used it to make this drawing here, but I used a lot of tutorials and it took me about a week to finish it. My goal with this video is to make 2 3D models with no tutorials and have them both finished in a day. The first model that I am making is Hwang-Choon from Ppulbatu. If you don't know what that is, Hwang-Choon is an official character made by K-pop idol Choi Yeonjun. As you have probably already guessed, I am still a beginner at 3D modeling, so if there are any experts out there watching this, please feel free to give me some advice. So I think that's enough talking for now. Let's get started. So the first thing that I do is delete everything and add my reference image. Next, I fix the rotation so the image is vertical. Now I'm moving the image to the left so that the blue line is in the middle of Hwang-Choon's feet. I duplicate the image and move it to the left and rotate it so that the profile of Hwang-Choon is in the right place. Now I'm moving the first image back so it's out of the way. Now right here I'm turning the image opacity down so that it is not so intrusive. Right here I open up the toggles and click the arrow so that I can make the images unselectable. I use the Shift A shortcut to get a cube mesh, then use the shortcut Control 3 to quick subdivide it. I go into wireframe view just to make things easier to see and understand so I don't get myself confused. I also change the wireframe colors so everything is a different color, so again I don't get confused on what I'm changing and moving around. My process for this is just moving the vertices around so that everything is in line with my reference image. It's nothing too crazy, I feel. In reality, it is just a bunch of shifting and moving and squeezing things until they're just the right shape. For every part of the body, like Hwang-Choon's head, his torso, his ears, I just add a new mesh and subdivide it. For his ears and arms and legs, I also use the mirror modifier. And for his arms, to have them be the right shape after I bring in the mesh, I also use 2 loop cuts and push them to the opposite ends to give it that sort of cylindrical shape. And for his hands, I'm using an icosphere and just using a mirror modifier on it. And right here, I'm doing the same with his legs and just pulling those outer vertices out so it connects to the stomach nicely. And also when you're 3D modeling, you also have to move around since you're moving in a 3D space and make sure all of everything is just correct and making sure the legs or the arms or the ears aren't too wide or too thin on the sides. I hop back into wireframe view and add a new mesh for the tail. I shrink it down, move it in place, and then take those top 2 vertices, shrink them down. I also have to add a loop cut so I have some more geometry to work with so I can bend the mesh in the way that it needs to accurately have the right tail shape. And like I just said before, I have to go around in the front to make sure everything is shaped right. So as you can see, the tail is way too wide, so I have to shrink that down. Now right here, I'm adding another mesh so I can model the little tufts of his hair. I shift the vertices around so they're aligned correctly. Then once it's in the position that I want it to be, I take the mesh and duplicate it and shift it down a bit so I can quickly sculpt the other tuft of hair. I then go into solid view and select all of the meshes and join them together. The next thing that I do after that is go around all of the joints and areas where the meshes were joined together and smooth everything out so it looks a bit nicer. I start with the ears and just work my way down the body, going around the arms, the legs, and then around the tail. After doing that, I go into side view and make the mesh see-through so I can see what areas I need to change and move around so the mesh better matches my reference image. The thing that I started off with first is the face. I start pushing in the face so that it can have a bit more of a backwards sloping look, and so I can pull out the nose a little bit and just carve out the area for the eyes. I move around into the front and see that it didn't go exactly symmetrically, so I have to smooth that out so the front of the face is flat and doesn't have like 2 indents on it. And right here I'm sloping the nose down, making it be more of a point so it looks more like a snout, which turned out to be kind of a mistake. I turned into the front view and I really didn't like how it looked, so I took the clay strips and added a lot more volume to smooth it out and give myself a fresh base. And right here I'm pulling out the base of the ears to make them more full and fluffy looking. And at this point I'm just making a bunch of little tweaks and adjustments to the mesh to get it how I want it to look. I shade smooth, but it doesn't really get rid of the hoaxy look that the mesh has, so I have to go in by hand in sculpt mode and just smooth out the boxiness to make everything look smooth and nice. After I finish doing that, I use the Draw Sharp brush to carve out the ears and make them look more natural and make them just look more like ears. After that, I go around the face again and just smooth things out just to make them look more pleasing. And then I decided to retopologize things to give everything a lower polygon count and to just practice it because I'm not good at it. I'm very new at it, and as you're going to see, my ability to retopologize things is lacking, to say the least. It looks horrible. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments for it. And then I try to auto shade smooth everything, and the tufts of hair look jank. I'm gonna be honest, I did such a bad job at retopologizing everything that it looks like this. Like, I cut those vertices out and redid it and made it a bit better. It's not perfect, but it's better than what it was. The next thing that I do is UV unwrap everything with Smart UV Project. And I go up to the top at texture slots and add a material for the base color. I use the eyedropper tool to color pick Hwang-Choon's colors from my reference image and just paint that on top of the model. And I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but in the moment I decided it would just be quicker to color the whole map orange on the left hand side. And now I'm starting to add in the face details. I start off with the nose and draw on the mouth, then the eyes and the little tufts of hair on his chin. For that, I draw on the mole under his eye, and then I move on to the outline of his tummy patch and drawing the tan fur that's for his tummy. And I'm gonna be honest, I really was inconsistent in the way that I did this, and I kind of regret drawing the outlines on the 3D model because they look good on the 2D drawing, but in 3D they really just don't look good. After I get done drawing on the tummy patch, I move on to the ears and shade in the whites of his ears and color in the little star on his left ear. And now I'm drawing on the lines to differentiate the space between the outer rim of his ear and the inner part. And next I move on to drawing his little shoes, his little blue shoes that he has, and I start with the black outline and then color in the shoes blue. And it is, I don't know how to do it better. Obviously I'm still new to this whole 3D modeling, but getting crisp, clean lines, I don't know how to achieve that when I'm texture painting. So if anyone knows how to get better, more sharp lines when you're texture painting, please feel free to let me know in the comments. Now that I'm done with the texture painting, the next thing that I'm going to do is make his little chicken hoodie. I think it's a chicken or a duck, I'm not 100% sure. But I select all the faces that I want to be his hoodie, and then I duplicate it and then separate it from the mesh, and after that I extrude those faces along the normals. Now right here I'm going into vertices select and moving around the vertices so the front of his mask is a little more rounded and less square. I didn't do a perfect job, but I did try. Now I color pick the yellow color from my reference image and paint it onto his little hood. And right here it's a little hard to tell what's going on, but I ran into a problem and I have no idea what caused it, but I tried to paint the yellow on his hood right here, but it wasn't painting it, and I don't know why, because it was painting the other areas just fine, but with this area right here it just was not coloring in anything. But I did manage to solve the problem by going into like the map on the left hand side and just coloring everything yellow. That seemed to solve it. Now I'm just coloring in the face details on the hood, the eyes, and like the little beak. And this is another issue that I have with texture painting, and I don't know if there's a better way to do it. If there's a layer mode like you have in a lot of digital drawing software, I would like to know if that's possible. And here is the final model. Now the next model that I'm going to be making is BT21's Chimmy. If you don't know what that is, that's BTS's Jimin's original character that he created. Now with this model, I did the exact same thing that I did with Hwang-Choon. I set up the reference image for the front, but the thing is, I don't have a side profile view of Chimmy, but I do actually have the 3D model. So I use that to help me make this 3D model. Now that that's done, the first thing that I do is I add a plane mesh and then go into vertex mode and merge it down so it's just one point, and then move it onto the mesh so I can start the retopology process. And then here is the finished work all retopologized, and here is how the vertices look. They look horrible. I fully well acknowledge that and understand that this is not how good retopology looks. And the ears are god-awful. I have nothing good to say for myself with this. I got tired of working on it and just stopped caring, I'm gonna be honest, and just wanted to get it over with. And because of my sloppy work, when I tried to shade smooth everything, it ends up looking like this, and I have no idea why, and I didn't know how to fix it. And I tried to cut out the vertices of the ear and try to make them look better, but it just was not working. Now that I'm done with the retopology work, I move on to the texture painting, and I ran into quite a few problems with this, and I have no idea what caused them, but I color picked from my reference image and colored in the left square here so I didn't not color everything, so that everything could be colored quickly. And here is where I ran into my problem. So I tried to paint the white face of like Chimmy on the mesh, but as you can see there's a line in the middle of his face, and it wouldn't let me paint on the bottom half of his face, and everything was just being painted on weirdly. I think it might have to do with seams, but I didn't make anything a seam. It like did it automatically, and I just had a struggle with texture painting this model. It was awful, and it just got worse and worse. So I don't know the best way to explain it, but as you can see in the video, since painting on the actual model wasn't working, my workaround to actually finishing it was to go into the like square like graph where you see like the squares and everything and paint on that specifically. And it was a very time consuming, tedious process because like I paint just a tiny bit outside of the square and then it paints somewhere completely randomly on the mesh. And so I'm gonna be honest, I'm really not proud of my completed work because like as you can see here, there's this mistake on the back right here, and I just could not be bothered to fix it. I'm gonna be real, I just could not be bothered. And so I just moved on, and this is how I set up the last project's lighting and the final like overview of everything and how I got things to look the way that they did. I made a spotlight, I made it white and had it pointing at the upper section just to give everything a cool like cinematic look. And then I add another one right here and set up the camera, and right here I'm changing aspect ratio so everything comes out looking nice in the render, and just readjusting the camera so that it's in the position that I want it to be. And so here it is, and this is the end of the video. I just want to thank you all so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye bye.